Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to anybody that is new. This is Robin Heron, your Carnivorous Grandma here. And I want to welcome you back to Carnivorous Grandma Speaks Women of Wisdom series. I'm super excited to have with me tonight proper human diet coach, Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so glad that you're here with us. I'm going to go ahead and read my scripture that goes along with this show. And it's Proverbs 14:1, and it says, "The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands." And I love this scripture. I always talk about it on this show, particularly when I'm speaking to women, because when it talks about building the house, this is what we're really doing, right? We're building our physical house. We're making wise choices for our families. We're communicating with others, and particularly you, Alyssa, are out here coaching people and teaching them how to build that physical house. So I absolutely, absolutely love it. And I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank
Do
you
you
so
want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Okay. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alyssa Rogers, and I am a certified primal health coach and fitness expert. I have been coaching now for 4 years as of this year. I do have my own coaching company, which is called Compass Wellness. It's here based in San Antonio, where I live. And then I am also lead coach inside Dr. Ken Berry's Proper Human Diet community, where I serve there as a coach and moderator as well. And so I wear a lot of hats when I am not coaching. I am a mom to two amazing children, soon to be three as of December of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I am also a music teacher as well. So I wear all kinds of hats, doing
Wow.
all kinds of things.
You are a very busy lady.
Sometimes, yes.
Well, I definitely appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to come in and chat with me. I was super interested in, first of all, let me say how much I appreciate the work that you do for Dr. Berry. You were the person who helped me facilitate that whole interview with Dr. Berry and Nisha, and it was just so nice working with you and trying to get that done. So thank you for that.
Of course, of course.
That was absolutely awesome. And then, of course, I see you often. I'm part of the Dr. Berry's PhD community and have been for, a couple years now, maybe.
Awesome.
And so, of course, I see you active in there, going live a lot and those kinds of things. So, really appreciate the work that you are doing. Um, so, I wanted to talk a little bit about your personal health journey.
Mm.
If maybe you can share a little bit about your health and the things that led you to the way that you're eating now. Talk a little bit about, what kind of dietary pattern you're following today.
Okay. All right. So I have been on some semblance of a health journey for the past 7 years. So my journey actually started way back in 2017. I've done every diet you can think of. I was raised in a family that was always doing the latest trend, right? So I did Weight Watchers, I did South Beach, I did Atkins, I remember having calorie counting books because we didn't have apps yet that did that for you.
Yes.
So I'm in that middle generation that had both, right?
Mhm.
And so there was always a focus on dieting, but it was very much like low fat 90s, that 100 calorie packs of Oreos and things like that. And so I was raised to be, diet conscious, but I didn't have all the right information. And then I was, let loose on my own in college, and freshman 15 hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
I was a music major, so I'm a trained classical singer, and I went to school for music education. And so the life of a music major is 18 hours every semester, lots of rehearsals. There was a lot of stress. And so on top of stress plus not eating well, and then starting to teach full time where the stress still didn't end, because now I was teaching full time. I got to a place in my late 20s where I went to a doctor appointment, and I was diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease at 27 years old. I was having chronic bladder spasms and was almost
Mm.
on medication for that. I dealt with chronic back pain from an injury in high school. I was basically a hot mess, and I did not know how to fix it. Um, and so I got pregnant and had my first son, Bradley, in 2016. And by the time he was about 8 or 9 months old, I had gained back all of the weight that I had put on in my pregnancy, but I didn't have another baby to show for it. So
Mhm.
I had reached my highest weight, which was about 225 pounds. Still had the NAFLD. The doctor that diagnosed me told me to change my diet.
Mm.
She said, but gave no how to do that. Just change your diet. And then she said, and I'm going to prescribe you some medicine for this, and made that gesture at my face and
Oh,
prescribed me anti-anxiety medication.
oh,
And that was what I walked out of that appointment with. And so
wow,
I
okay,
didn't really do anything or make changes because I felt like I wasn't really given enough information.
right.
And so after I saw a picture of myself, a candid photo that I had not really posed for. We were taking pictures in the bluebonnets with our son. And I saw that picture and I just went, "Oh my gosh, is that me?"
Mm.
And so I went, "This is not good. Like, you don't feel well." I was on um Nexium for silent reflux. I was on daily allergy medications, sinus, the whole gamut. And I just didn't feel well. And I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So in 2017, I went like I had always done, but this time I tried Beachbody. And so I was doing at home workouts, I was drinking shakes, and I did lose some weight. But the thing that changed for me was I happened to be listening to a podcast by one of the Beachbody coaches, and they had somebody on who started talking about a ketogenic diet. And I had never heard the word keto. I didn't know what ketogenic meant. But everything that they talked about was the complete opposite of anything that I had ever heard. And
Yeah.
by this point, I just said, you know what? You've tried everything else. You might as well try something different. And
Mhm.
so that summer of 2017, we went on a cruise, our very first cruise together, my husband and I. And I said, look, when we come back, this is what we're going to do. And so I spent the beginning of the summer researching podcast articles, anything I could get my hands on to be like, is this going to kill me or not?
Right.
And so in June of 2017, my husband and I both started a ketogenic diet. And by the time I went for lab work in 2018, and about 10 months later, I had lost 50 pounds. I went and I got blood work, and my fatty liver was reversed. My blood markers were fantastic.
Oh my god.
And over time, I don't have silent reflux anymore. I no longer have chronic back pain. I was able to get off all of my medications that I was taking for allergies. I don't have seasonal allergies anymore.
Amazing.
I saw so much improvement by just starting off and figuring out what does eating a ketogenic diet look like. And
Mhm.
so over the last 7 years, you asked me the other question, like, how do you eat now, right? And that's a really good question because it really depends on the day.
Okay.
When I first started, I really felt like I had to be in a specific box, and that
Yes.
I really had to eat a certain way or I was doing it, quote unquote, wrong. I love Dr. Berry's approach of a proper human diet because there is a spectrum within the PhD. And, today has been, I mean, I'm also in the midst of a pregnancy. Today has been a much more paleo day for me. You
Mhm.
know, whereas yesterday was more carnivorous. And so for me, I function somewhere in the spectrum of ketogenic, sometimes even low carb,
Mhm.
all the way to carnivore. And it really depends for me what my current goals are as far as my health. As a current, still menstruating woman, to me, it depends on my cycle. I have found that oscillating through different things helps my body feel really great. And
Okay.
so those are things that I have learned, but it took me time to learn that. But I'm really grateful that even while I was learning more about my body and how my body functions best, I have always had the ability to fall back on, you eat real food. And
Yes.
okay if it's not carnivore. It's okay if it's not 20 grams or less keto today. The question is, did you eat real food? Did you do practices that nourish your body and support whole body health? And I
Yes.
think that that looks different for everyone. And I know that it's changed for me over my 7-year journey now.
That is awesome. I would love to just have you explain a little bit more about what is the spectrum of a proper human diet. I think that this trips people up a lot. And I'm carnivore
Mhm.
mainly. I eat some spices and stuff like that. So, but I'm pretty much meat-based
Mhm.
carnivore
Yeah.
for specific reasons. But I know that everybody does not have to go
Right.
as extreme as me. They don't maybe have the same issues that I have, right? So can
Absolutely.
you just talk a little bit more about the proper human diet and talk about what that is?
So the proper human diet is a spectrum that has guidelines. And some of the biggest guidelines are, we are eating real foods. We are eating foods that are as close to single ingredient as possible. We can combine those single ingredient foods, like, right, we can have meat and spices and have a delicious meal, right?
Mhm.
Or in our family, we are very fond of meat with a side of meat.
Yes,
So
me
we'll
too.
have steak and shrimp. We'll have, chicken with like a side of deviled eggs, like that counts for us as, meats and sides, right? And so within that spectrum, the biggest kind of boundary, I guess you would say, would be like low carb, which for some people, low carb can be 20, it can be 50 grams, it can be as high as 100, really just depending on, once again, what are your goals? If your goal is fat loss, then you've got to pull that down a little bit, to get where you want to go. Or if you're doing things like carnivore or lion diet, which is pulling those restrictions even smaller, you're doing things because your body's got some healing to do,
Yes.
and you need to support. And for some people, that's where you stay because that's how your body feels its best. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, so the proper human diet is focusing on real food ingredients. It's focusing on ancestral eating and ancestral living as much as we can inside modernity and 2024. We were, I like to say that we were opportunistic omnivores, you know,
Mhm.
ate
Mhm.
both foods. We ate meat and we ate plants, but we had preferences for animal protein. But animal protein wasn't always available, so our bodies had to adapt to be able to handle vegetation, fruit, things like that. The things that we notice now is that those things weren't always available, and now you can walk into a grocery store and get any single fruit or vegetable you want 24
Any time of year.
7 days a week. There
Yeah.
is no in season or off season, and everything has been bred to be as big and tasty and sweet as it can possibly be.
Right.
So it can be really challenging, I think, for us to look at food through an ancestral perspective when so much of what we do is not ancestral
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I think the PhD is really focused on real food, focusing on protein heavy. I love prioritizing protein, not just for myself, but for my clients. Um, Protein forward, fat is for flavor and for feeling full. It's to make our food taste good and to help provide satiety. It's what allowed our bodies to go for days on end without food. And it's what allowed our brains to get bigger and smarter because our brains love fat.
Yeah.
And then carbohydrates are curbed and they're on a spectrum based on your needs and your goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Um, so I kind of want to go back just a little bit where you talked about your non-alcoholic fatty liver disease
Mhm.
and having that be cured through a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
What did your doctor have to say? Did your doctor respond at all to that, or what was her?
So at the time, she asked me, "So what did you do differently?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Well, because back then keto wasn't a huge thing
Yeah,
and it hadn't become a buzzword, it hadn't become a trend yet." And I was like, "I don't know." I said, "Well, I started this ketogenic diet." And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, "So you cut out processed foods?" And I was like, "Yeah, I had to, because especially back then there were no keto products, none of
that's
that
right.
stuff."
Yep.
And so I said, "Yeah, that's what I did, but I didn't tell her that I was eating, super high fat, like because she had no idea. And she was like, "Well, whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it because it seems to be working." And I was like,
Yes.
"Yes, ma'am."
That's awesome, yeah. I think that that time was challenging. I did keto for a long time, right back around that time. I did keto for 5 years straight.
Wow.
And actually, there were no keto products.
Mm-mm.
There was nothing to, like,
They're
to
very
spike
hard to
your cravings and all that kind of thing like there is now, like the highly processed, very, very tasty products, like Quest bars and those kinds of things.
I will say, I'm so glad I started when I did.
Yeah.
To get those things, you had to make them. You
Yep.
know, like, if you wanted some kind of bridge food that got you from standard American to ketogenic, you had
Yes.
to make it. You had to
Yep.
cook it, and I did those things. Like, I have pictures of, like, the keto desserts that I made and things like that, and now you can go almost anywhere.
Yep.
And it's like, as I don't even think that's great because in reality, I'm like, I don't think that that's really serving people in the best way,
Yeah.
especially when you struggle with emotional eating. Like, if you don't just deal with physiological symptoms of hunger, God bless
Mhm.
you, you are amazing.
Right.
I am not that person, right? And so having access to things that I know aren't actually going to be nourishing can be really challenging. Whereas when
Yes.
I started this 7 years ago, none of that stuff existed. And so you had to get creative, or you had to say, I don't want to put the effort in to make that. So therefore, I don't need to have it.
Right, or, I can't find the ingredients, all those kinds of things back then was like, did you use, like, Nutrition? I used to shop on Nutrition all the time because that was the only place I could find the ingredients to make the keto products.
No, I mean, I can remember being in stores and, like, being shocked when they started carrying almond flour.
Yeah,
And
right,
now it's everywhere.
right,
Like, it's very interesting how once it became a fad or a trend, like, it took off. And
yes,
and like I said, I think that those are bridges, and I think
yeah,
that they can be helpful to people who need them when
mhm,
they're first starting out, but
right,
ideally, over time, we also have to figure out what does it look like to eat ancestrally, and there's nothing wrong with processing foods to make them ways for us to eat them. Like, I love Dr. Bill Schindler, who is the guy whose brand is Eat Like a Human. And
mhm,
his whole thing is an approach of like, the reason that we became as smart as we did is because we learned how to process foods as humans. But a food process is like fire, like cooking it. That is a
huh?
process. Fermenting things is a
Right,
process, right?
yes,
I
Right.
think that processed food, sometimes we're talking ultra processed. We're talking boxes and bags and packages
Yes.
and multiple ingredients. And yes, those
Yes.
are things that we need to stay away from. But
Mhm.
practices that we have been doing for quite a long time, like fermentation and, cooking things and things like those are things that
Right.
need to stay. And we can view those processes as not nearly as negatively impactful for our bodies as ultra processed foods.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay, so proper human diet is really um, eating real food, prioritizing protein, and eating and living a more ancestral type of a life. That's basically what it is. So thank you for boiling that down for us because I think a lot of people, like a lot of times, people think because I'm carnivore that I'm against everything that's not carnivore.
Mm. I mean,
But
I can
yeah,
see why, but not because of you or your channel, but there are definitely people in the realm of social media who make that a thing, unfortunately.
yes. I mean, and I think that goes with everything. There are some people that are hugely dogmatic about anything, any topic. That's not me though. So I
Love that.
know that certain people, don't have to go as far as I did.
Yeah.
I really deal with a lot of autoimmune
Mhm.
issues, and keto did not clear those up. Although I will mention to you that keto did cure my hypertension. So I started like going toward having hypertension, and my father has had chronic hypertension as long as I can remember.
Mhm.
And I started having these headaches, and I was like, I'm gonna go and start checking my blood pressure because I feel like maybe my blood pressure is going up. And
Mhm.
it was, they put me on medicine. I was like, why take medicine for what I know food can do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Like,
I'm no longer hypertensive. Um,
wow.
and that's been several years ago now because I did that while I was on keto. And just over the last year and a half, little over a year and a half, I've been carnivore.
I love that.
So,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. And I really
Yeah.
hope that you continue to see improvement and remission of your autoimmune symptoms too.
Me too. That's really my ultimate goal is to hopefully and prayerfully resolve those issues through proper eating and other, proper things. But we're going to talk a little bit about that, about other kind of things that you can do in addition to diet. One question that I had for you is like, when you're coaching, are you seeing people dealing with a lot of struggles around emotional eating, and having difficulty giving up sort of those ultra processed, highly palatable types of foods because of the emotional aspect of it?
Yes, I would say that a lot of the clients that I work with specifically do come, and sometimes they know, like they recognize that there are some disordered patterns of eating or behavior. Sometimes they don't always notice, and so it's one of those things that as I'm listening and trying to get to know my clients, then it's a matter of being able to say, here's what I hear you saying, about this food, about this situation, and am I accurate in what I'm hearing from you? I am an emotional eater. Like, that is not a thing that will ever go away. That is
Mhm.
my reality. And one of the first things you have to do is you have to accept the reality that you choose, that you are living in. Even if you did not choose it, it is your reality. But that doesn't mean that you are stuck there. It doesn't mean that it will always be hard or always be challenging, but it will always be present. And so you have to learn how to live with it, and you have to learn tools and tricks, and basically to develop a new toolbox of coping skills, of ways to interact with food, setting up boundaries, which, because not everyone loves the word restriction.
Right.
People get mad. But I think that we have boundaries in our world for lots of things.
We do.
We don't walk around, most of us at least, and punch people that we don't like, that we've never met, in the middle of the street. That's frowned upon in polite society. And so we have lots of restrictions. We have lots of things that we don't do to keep us safe. And
Yes.
so it is totally okay and normal to have to set up boundaries with food to keep you safe, and or to help you reach the goals that you have for this vessel that you get. We get one. We
Right.
only get one. You get one body to live in. And I really want to take care of it in the best way that I can. And that means that I have to get okay with that there are foods that I don't need to eat. And not necessarily because it's not good for my body, yes, but also because I know my reality well enough to know if I have that food, it's going to lead, to this food and this food and this food. And then I'm going to wake up a week later going, oh my gosh, not only do I have no idea what happened in the last week, but I don't feel well. And,
Right.
I think the thing that I find the most interesting is that when I was overweight and when I was eating a standard American diet, I woke up every day some version of meh. You know,
Mhm.
Maybe it was a little bit more meh, maybe it was a little less. I was always tired, something always hurt. And so when that's how you feel, it's really easy to just say whatever. And really and truly, like, real talk, I'm almost 5 months pregnant and I've had a really hard pregnancy. I have been nauseous 24/7,
Oh no.
and I thought it would go away, and it's not 24/7, but now it's this weird, when is it going to hit? We don't know. And so there are a lot of days where I am just not feeling well. And that makes it really hard for me, some days, to choose nutrient density and to not choose comfort, right?
Yes.
And so, but what I will say is that I have to constantly remind myself, this is a season and it will get better. Now, it might be a long season because I'm gonna have a newborn and then that's a whole thing.
Right.
So, like, I get it, right? um, but I remember when I first started a ketogenic diet, waking up and find, like, a few months in, going, I feel awesome. I don't hurt. I don't have any pain. I can run around with my toddler and feel good in my body. And when you feel that compared to, like, dumpster fire, it's really hard to go back to dumpster fire. When you're just over here and, like, this is your range of how you feel, it's really easy to be like, I don't care. But when you have actually felt
Right.
well, it is so hard to go back. And so I just say that by way of, for those of you who may be in a really hard season or a really long season, where sometimes it's really hard to take even the littlest of wins, I get it. But
Yeah.
it's going to get better. Your body will heal and you will feel better. And when you do finally experience that, that I think gives you an extra boost of, like, this is why I'm doing this. It re-solidifies that why and
Yeah,
helps you keep going, for sure.
absolutely. So, before we go to the next kind of section where I want to talk, kind of pivot and talk a little bit more about coaching, I just kind of want to say hi to the folks that are in here talking in the chat. So Dr. Nelson is here. Hey, Dr. Nelson. He says hello. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Mhm.
We have JR, my
Oh,
next 50 years. Hi, JR. I'm so glad that you're here. JR has a goal, and her goal is to heal my body from the inside out and stay off medications.
I love it.
Mine too.
I love it.
Mine too. It's so nice. I just turned 58, on
No,
Monday. Yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah. I just turned 58. And I don't take any I have had hot flashes.
I mean, I feel it. That pregnancy, menopause is great, isn't it?
Yeah, my glasses are fogging up, but I don't take any medications.
That's amazing.
And I think they say like, you get around 40, 50 years old, your body starts breaking down, you expect to have a box full of medicines, right? Nope.
I mean,
I
that
don't
is
have
the
that problem.
majority of America. Like, congrats to you for being an elite, and being in that
Yay.
program. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm happy and thankful for that. I just had my labs done. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night I'm going to be live streaming with Nurse Laura from at Healthy Carnivore, and she's going to go over my labs. But I'll just give a little teaser. Those labs were perfect. I
Excellent.
was
That's
very
awesome.
happy. Yeah. All right. So Caprice Hill is here. Hi, Caprice. Thank you for being here.
This is one of my
Um,
former clients. She is an
oh.
absolute gem.
Awesome, awesome. And Lisa Rich is here from Idaho. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here. And then Capri says, yes, I love the boost.
Yep. There you go.
Awesome. All right, so let's just pivot a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about primal health coaching and what is that, and what is the supports that you are giving for folks that need it.
Absolutely. Okay, so when I started, kind of changing my diet and lifestyle, people noticed, I lost a lot of weight in a short time, 10 months, even though people are like, that's a long time. I'm like, not really. Um, people started to notice and they said, what are you doing? And so instead of giving everybody the same spiel, I started a Facebook group. And I just said, look, you want to know what I do? Join my Facebook group. And I just started kind of talking about a ketogenic diet. We did some meetups, and it was mostly just friends and family. I mean, that group grew to like 670 something people. I was shocked.
Wow.
And this was just me just kind of saying, hey, here's what I'm learning. But the more I started working with other people, the more then I was like, well, I really need to know about this. So, excuse me, I started going through podcast after podcast. That's when you have kids. That's how you learn because there is not a lot of time to read books.
Right.
It's like we're in nap time in the car and I'm listening to my podcast going, okay, we're going to learn something right now in the next 20 minutes, right? Um,
Yes.
and so eventually I started having people ask, like, hey, will you help me, individually? And my husband was really the one who finally looked at me and he said, when are you going to start doing this, and actually make a little bit of money? He was like, because you're doing a lot for free. He was like, and
Mhm.
that's awesome. He was like, but this is, especially because I was still also teaching and he was like, you're trying to wear a lot of hats, and he was like, and your time is valuable and your knowledge is valuable. So I finally said, okay, I will think about getting a certification. And then COVID happened and we had nothing else to do. So I decided to get my certification in 2020.
Nice.
um, so I looked around at the different coaching programs that were available at the time. And of course, now that I'm 4 years in, there's a lot more coaching programs, right?
Mhm.
What I liked about Primal Health was that it exists as a spectrum. It's a spectrum of nutrition and a spectrum of practices, but they all come from the place of ancestral health. So when I would learn about nutrition, I was learning everything from paleo all the way to carnivore. I learned about all of that and how to work with my clients based on what diet they want to do. Most of my
Mhm.
clients are coming in and we're doing some form of a ketogenic diet or a carnivorous diet, but I also have some people who are athletes, and they're working and they're doing so much more movement and exercise than most of the people I work with. And so I'm like, well, you get to eat a little differently because of the way that you're expending your energy, and
Mhm.
we want to support your efforts, especially like endurance runners and things like that. And so what I liked about that was that it paired the nutrition aspect in an umbrella that umbrellaed all of the things that I was like, I like those things, especially with movement too, ancestral movement practices, and that was why I did also get the fitness expert certification, was because I wanted a more in-depth knowledge of why they recommended the way that they recommended, exercise and movement in general. um, and then they even talked about, things like sleep, sunshine, circadian rhythms, like all of
Mhm.
these different places and different rabbit holes. And then from a business and coaching perspective, the other thing that I liked about Primal Health is that they also worked on coaching skills. They also gave you some things to think about as far as starting a small business. And
Wow.
so it wasn't just the knowledge, because honestly, after 5 years or 3 years, I had a lot of knowledge, you know, but I didn't know how to start a small business. And I come from an education background, which I think has really benefited me as a coach. But there were still some skills that I got to hone during my certification that I think have benefited me very much as far as like how to actually coach someone. Um,
Mhm.
there is a difference between being a coach and being a teacher or an educator. There's a difference between being a coach and being a social media influencer.
Yeah.
Like there's nuance there. And so I was
Mhm.
really grateful for that program and that certification.
Yeah, I've already started looking into what certification I would like to get. There's a couple that I'm looking at it, and Primal is one of them.
Yeah.
Ooh, they cost a lot of money though.
Yeah. I mean, my long-term stretch goal would be to be a functional nutritional therapy
Oh,
practitioner.
that's
That's
awesome.
that's one of these days that will be a certification that I add to my list of alphabet soup at the end of my name. Um,
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, it sounds to me like you're kind of like a therapist as a health coach. Am
sure.
I getting it right?
I don't have those letters, so let's
Right.
real talk. And I do, when I work with my clients, there always comes a space where I say, I am more than happy to hold space for the things that you need to say out loud. But
Yeah.
it is now time for you to add someone to your team that is qualified to help and assist you in ways that I cannot.
Yes.
But I will say, I think I've said this with every single client, is that it's not always about the food. It's very rarely about the food.
Right.
Food is a really good coping skill for the things that we don't want to interact with and the things that we don't want to feel. Um,
Yes.
and I am, because I've walked that myself, I'm always very willing to hold space for that. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, no, I am not a therapist, but I am always willing to support my clients in whatever ways that they need support.
Yeah, that's awesome because, because as you said, it's most of the time not about the food.
Yeah.
It's about all the things that are
Yeah.
behind the food.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, so many things, so many emotions. As I talk a lot about emotional eating on my channel because I deal and struggle with that. And talk about the different, abstinence versus, indulgence and those types of things
Yeah.
that I deal with. And knowing that most of it is not really even about like addiction. I talk a lot about addiction. Those things are not necessarily about the food, you
Right.
know.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
totally agree with you
Yeah.
on that.
And not everybody has those constraints or has that as part of their reality. And that's the other thing about coaching, is
That's
that,
right.
so my company is made up of me and two of my colleagues. And I am the one who does the most one on one coaching. And if you ask the three of them, like, I'm the one with the most feels and emotions. Right. And which is probably one of the reasons why I love working with one-on-one clients, is because
Yeah.
like I'm really willing to get up in your feels with you, and but not everybody wants that. And
Right.
not everybody needs that. And
Right.
that's why we have like a huge variety of different kind of coaches, not just in the PhD community, but just out in the wild. I am not everybody's cup of tea, and that is a-okay with me. Like you don't have to, I don't have to be your cup of tea, right?
Mm.
There are some people who are going to be like, I can't handle the crazy lady in the space buns talking about emotions. Like, that's not, I don't want you. And that's totally fine. But there are some people who will hear me and go, she sounds like someone that I could say things and she's not going to judge me. And
Yeah.
she's gonna go, I get it. I've been there. Okay, let's help you move through that. Right. And so, if I am your person and I am, the person that you vibe with, like that's fantastic. We will have a
Yeah.
fantastic time together. But I
Mhm.
think that that's why we need more coaches and we need more people out there helping other people, because everybody needs help in different ways.
Right. And I'm gonna just pop this up really quick. So Caprice says, Alyssa's great at meeting where you are and listening. So
Priest.
that's awesome. Thanks, Caprice. Yeah, that's really, really good. So um, so how would you help a person to transition from a standard American diet into a more ancestral or whatever diet it is that they're going to do, be
Yeah,
it
yeah.
paleo, carnivore, or low carb, whatever it is. What is your approach?
Okay. So when I'm first working, I actually have a client who's kind of fairly new, to the ketogenic realm. So a lot of my clients come to me and they've kind of already done keto or they've already done carnivore, and we're getting really granular as to like why things might not be working, right?
Hmm.
But I did actually have a new client who's kind of new to this whole PhD space. So if I was working with someone who's never done this before, the first thing that I do have to do is I have to put my teacher hat on for a little bit, because what I want my clients to understand is the why behind my recommendations. Because especially
Hmm.
when you're transitioning from a standard American diet and you're about to tell somebody you cannot eat or you shouldn't eat or I would avoid all of these foods that have fed you for the last however many years, people are going to come at you because like that's very challenging, right? But when you understand the reasons why, then I think that people can go, okay, I had a conversation with this new client about industrial seed oils because she did not know. She did not understand the deleterious effects that seed oils have in the human body because she hasn't read Deep Nutrition by Dr. Kate Shanahan like I have. You
Right.
know, so that was my job, was to say, okay, here's my reason why. And if that reason why resonates with you, then that's why I really need you to go into your kitchen and go into your pantry and take those things out and put them somewhere else. I don't care if
Right.
you throw them away. I don't care if you donate them. I don't care if you give them to your next door neighbor. Like whatever it is you want to do, as long as it's gone. And some people they struggle because like there's a financial investment. They're like, I paid for this food. I don't know if my husband will be okay. And I just said, then you say, I'm going to put these things somewhere for you. You can use them. You can do whatever you want with them, but I can't have them in my line of sight, because in
Right.
my line of sight needs to be the foods that I know are okay and
Hmm.
I know are going to be helpful and not harmful to my body. So I typically kind of talk them through here's the whys of all the things that we're going to do. And then we start with a pantry and kitchen clean out.
Hmm.
And then we have a conversation about, okay, so what are the foods that you feel like might be a struggle, that you're going to look up in a week or two and be like, man, if I don't have yogurt, I'm going to jump off the cliff, lady. Then we talk about brands and options of what I call bridge foods. You know,
Hmm.
because I can remember listening to a podcast when I was first on this journey, and she was talking about how much she loved 100% cacao dark chocolate. And I was like, you are on crack. I was like, there is no way that 100% dark chocolate tastes good. You know,
Right.
and I was like, no. and how good plain Greek yogurt tastes. And I was like, these people have lost their mind. You know, and it took me years to get to that point, right? But I have not forgotten that. And so I know that I can't come at new people with, you know what you need? You need some 100% Greek yogurt, a couple strawberries, and some unsweetened cacao chips, because they're going to try that and they're going to be like, this is disgusting. I
Yeah.
have the wrong person. This was a bad plan, you know? And so then we talk about those bridge foods. We talk about, here's how we're going to bridge the gap, right? And I will say, I still can't quite do 100%, but I can do 92, and I think 92% cacao tastes delightful.
Wow.
But I
Some pretty dark chocolate.
I think it's great, but had you asked me 7 years ago, I would have told you that you were crazy, you know. And I do plain Greek yogurt now. I cut up like 2 strawberries and I do unsweetened cacao chips. I think it's a really great flavor profile. It's got the tang, it's got some bitter, it's got the sweet. It's got all 3 things. But
Hmm.
if you had me eat that 7 years ago, I would
Hmm.
have been like, "No, thank you." And so, yeah, I did yogurt with fruit and I did stevia drops, you know, because I was like, I want this to taste like my blueberry Yoplait that I ate my whole life, you know?
Yes,
And
I hear you.
so we have to help our clients and empower them to make decisions and better choices. But a lot of times they just don't know that the choices are out there, and they
Right.
don't know that the choices can exist on a spectrum. That's one of the reasons that my colleagues and I chose Compass Wellness as our company name, is because our that compass stands for the spectrum of where you are in your own health journey. Not everybody is ready to be carnivore, and that's
Right.
okay. You know,
Yes.
we all get there. I graduated into carnivore. I had to take some baby steps into it before I decided that that was the thing I wanted to even try, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, so I just think that that's kind of when I'm working with new people, that's I kind of help by empowering with knowledge and
Yes.
making sure that they have enough tools to support a transition that doesn't suck, basically.
Yeah. Right. And it really does not have to suck.
No,
Because
it doesn't have to suck.
keto, I don't know. I don't know about paleo. I think I must have missed paleo because I didn't try it. And I
It's a
tried every diet that I knew about.
yeah. It's all the
Can
cross
do it's
eating
absolutely
potatoes.
delicious. It's like, everything is good.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be a very painful transition. I wanted to ask about any issues or challenges around the mental change of it. And I'm thinking in terms of like our nutrition guidelines, the food pyramid, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
all of what we have been taught about what is healthy for human beings to eat. Is there anything challenging around that with coaching?
Um, like I said, I would say, most of my, clients come in and I hate to use this phrase, but they've kind of already drank the Kool-Aid when it comes to like keto and paleo and things like that.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
I will say that when I'm presenting that new information, I try also to pair it with resources. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I'm a podcast kid,
Yep.
because, like I said, I've read Deep Nutrition, which was a deep dive into seed oils. It's this thick. Nobody
Wow.
has time for not my clients. Like, they're busy living life. That's why they hired me, right? And so
Right.
I kind of like to view myself as a filter of
Mhm.
that information, and I'm offering a slightly biased opinion, sure, but I'm also trying to, give not just here's what I say, take what I say and trust it, right? But also here's the information. Here's where you can go learn more about that. And so I think that when people sign up to work with a coach, hopefully by that point, they've already tried their best to get an idea of who this person is. And that's what you would see like on my social media or interact
Mhm.
with me within the PhD community. So it's like they kind of already know a little bit about what they're going to get. And I think because
Yes.
there's that level of trust, in who I am and in my expertise, if you want to even call it that, because I'm still just walking this life trying to figure it out, then they're willing to hear and they're
Yeah.
willing to listen. And when I do say, here's what we've been told, and I just don't know if that's 100% accurate, I have very rarely have someone come at me and say, how dare you go against the standard of care or the standard
Right.
paradigm. I
Yes.
I don't have a lot of that. I mean, in
Okay.
my own family, there are people who I think butt up against that, but that has more to do with them than it does with me. And
Right.
so, and once again, like I'm not their cup of tea, because I'm just too close. And that's okay too.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's very challenging. I mean, in this particular case where someone's coming for coaching, they are looking for something specific probably when they're looking for a coach. But just in general, it's quite challenging in dealing with the whole, you know, what is good and proper nutrition versus not. And I always like to say, eat more meat and don't and eat real food.
Yeah. It's really hard to argue eat real food, and you
Yeah.
can nuance that. Like we can get more granular, when it
Mhm.
comes to, well, why do I eat this specific kind of real food in these specific amounts? But
Right.
it's very hard to argue. The thing that I think that people don't recognize is that nobody eh, people will want to listen to you when they're ready to listen to you.
Yeah.
If I've learned anything from being a coach, it is that I
Yeah.
do not go around and tell people things about them that they don't know. And I
Mhm.
don't tell them things that I think they should or should not do because they did not ask me. And I love my husband, and he is one of those people that likes to try and tell people things about them that they don't know. And I'm like, honey, they didn't ask. They really don't want to know. And when they do want to know,
Right.
they will know to come to you because they have watched you, they know what you do, and it's the same thing. When someone wants to know, they will come and talk to me about it. And that can be hard because I mean, I've got family members that, look at me like I'm crazy. I've had, good friends who've called me like a health nut or a health snob before about different things. And the thing about it is that's them
Yeah.
coming to that long look in the mirror that they're just not quite ready to take yet. Because if I'm right, then everything that they've been doing may not have been the right choice.
Right.
And they have to own that and they have to look at that. And that can be scary.
Right.
I get it, And
Yes.
so all of my clients that I work with have come to that place and said, okay, I didn't get it all right. And I need to figure out how to get it right, and I'm gonna need a little bit of help along the way, which is why I'm coming to you.
What are some of the most significant health benefits that you've seen, through your clients within your coaching practice?
I wanna say that the biggest benefits that I've seen in working with a lot of my clients is their overall, like health improves, not just weight loss, but seeing lab numbers improve. I will say I've seen a lot of the clients I work with mostly women, see improvement in anxiety symptoms and just being able to show up in their world as a calmer, more stable presence, that
Yes,
makes the biggest difference in the
it
world.
does. It really does.
Especially when I work with women who, have children, whether it's young children, teenagers, older children, and man, as women, we walk through a lot and we carry a lot.
Yeah.
And some of those things we can put down and maybe we choose not to, but some of those things we can't put it down yet. We're just not in a place where that's a thing we can do. And so
Mhm.
if we have to carry things, I want my clients to be able to carry it in a way where that yoke and that burden is as light as possible. And when you
Yeah.
remove inflammatory compounds, whether it's food, whether it's lifestyle related compounds, um, watching them be able to say, like, I can move through my workday and I'm just not as angry or I'm not as overwhelmed. Like
Mm.
that to me is the biggest win. And if they don't lose anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Because I would rather you be able to show up every day as the best
Mhm.
and favorite version of yourself than
Yeah.
for you to be skinny.
Absolutely. That is a really, really great answer, and so many people have realized this benefit. It's, like, incredible.
Mhm.
The fact that we're dealing with so much anxiety that we don't even know that we're anxious, social anxiety, afraid to go out of our houses, all these kinds of crazy things, and then when you just change your diet, it kind of dissipates. It's
Yeah.
really incredible,
Mhm.
actually.
It is.
We do have one question in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up. This is Dr. Nelson. Are
Mhm.
you familiar with the Nutrition Network coaching programs, and how do they compare to Primal?
Um, I am not 100% sure, Dr. Nelson. I want to say that when I looked up programs, I think that was one of them. And I think as far Primal for me was everything that I wanted as far as what I wanted the education to cover, and it was at a price point that I could afford. Um, a
Mhm.
lot of the programs that are great programs are, another college degree, and I
Yeah.
already have one.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't do that. Like I said, if I could have, I would have done nutritional therapy. But I just wasn't able to make that, a thing at the time. And so
Right.
and my husband was like, you just need a sheet of paper that says you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
said,
Right.
"Okay, I can go get that, and I can get that through Primal Health." And since, when I first started, the only certification Primal had was the original Primal Health coach. Since then, they have developed multiple certifications for an
Mhm.
abundant of, all kinds of different things, which I
Yeah.
think is fantastic. So I'm not super familiar with that, but I want to say it was probably up there with the nutritional therapy costs. And I went, well, that's not a thing that I can do right now.
All right. Thank you for your response to that question. So we have about 4 minutes left. So I really kind of want to touch on challenges. Like,
Okay.
what kind of challenges are people facing when they're trying to transition and also maintain, their proper human diet?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I see is just a lack of support. And I see that inside the community, in the PhD community, and with Compass we have a of our own like VIP group. And so I think sometimes, like, when you're the group and you're chatting with people or you're on a live stream or whatever, we get in this little bubble of like everything is great and we have so much support and it's so good. And then you get off the computer and you go into real life. And
Mhm.
if you don't have a real life person to help you, it's hard,
Yeah.
especially if like your spouse doesn't support you or your family is not very supportive. And that's a lot of times that's why people hire me, because like I'm a real life person and
Right.
they can text me at any time. When I coach people, I say like, you can text me if you have a question. If you're, staring at with the fridge door open and you don't know what to do, send me a text. Because then we can have a conversation and you can
Right.
talk to a real life person about the things that you're walking through. Especially if you don't have that support. The other challenge that I see is our, especially for women, understanding how our hormones play a role in how our bodies respond to a diet. I think that what I've seen is that, we if you look at a lot of the influencers, in social media, man, they're young because they have time. They don't have kids yet. They're
Mhm.
not married. They're out there going to the gym and eating good food, living their best life, and their hormones haven't taken a dive off of a cliff yet. Or even started thinking about it. Like they're looking over the cliff going, I think I'm going to do it, and that's what I mean. I'm going to be 37 in a few weeks. And
Happy birthday.
thank you. And I was literally about to go to the doctor to start my baseline hormone panel because I was like, something's getting weird and it's not crazy yet. And of course, then at the time I was just pregnant and I didn't know. So, I was like, oh, never mind. I know what it is,
Yeah.
But I will say that for women who are in their perimenopause years, who half the time you don't know you're in perimenopause, you just think that life got really terrible out of nowhere. And even women who are coming to the beginning of menopause, like their body is now in this transition of, I'm no longer menstruating. What does that mean? What is it?
Mhm.
Like I think that that's where we don't have a ton of information. One of my favorite people to listen to right now is Dr. Mary Claire Haver. She's the Galveston Diet is her brand. And she talks about how if you go to PubMed and you search menopause, you get like 5,600 articles. But if you search perimenopause, you
Mhm.
get like 600. Like there's
Oh,
just
wow.
a ton of research out there that helps us
Interesting.
as women understand what is going on inside our bodies as our hormones begin to slowly deplete over time. And you can't expect what worked when you had totally great functioning hormones to work when they all start to go a little wackadoodle, you know?
Right.
And so I think that that's what I see a lot of in the space is people going, well, keto or carnivore worked the first time and now it's not working. And I'm like, you're 5 years older than you were. And are
Yeah.
you in your 30s or 40s? Because if you are, I have bad news.
Right.
You know? And it's
Yeah.
not that it can't get better, but that it's going to be a challenge. And guys,
Mhm.
wives get mad at their husbands because, the guys decide, I'm going to quit drinking soda and they lose 13 pounds
Right.
or whatever. And
Yes.
look at a sweet potato and we gain 10,
Right.
and
Yep.
that's because their hormonal cycle is 24 hours and it just does that until they are no longer with us, you know? And so it's a different game for dudes. And if you're not a female, like you don't get it. And so I think there's also a little bit of just needing more support for our female
Mhm.
clients and saying like, you're not crazy. Like the
Right.
things you're feeling are real and there's a reason for them. And so how do we adapt and change your diet and lifestyle to support your ever changing body? And so that's what I would love to see more talk about in our community because I think that is a challenge for a lot of women, right?
Yes, it is. And, I just thought about this when I first came into the carnivore community, how few women there were talking about being on carnivore. Carnivore was kind of like an athlete's thing. People who did athletics and, bodybuilders and stuff
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
carnivores, but the ladies, there just wasn't too much talk about. And
Right.
even, as part of the Healing Humanity, the Power of Proper Human Diet documentary, the challenge of finding, you know, information on women related to women's health in the carnivore diet is very, very, very challenging.
It is. That's true.
So, Alyssa, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. Want to just ask you, where can the folks find you? I pulled up your website.
Oh, you found me.
Yes,
So,
I
yeah,
think this is it. I'm going to just share my screen a second here. Okay,
like we do have a website. It is mycompasswellness.com.
I found it.
Yay, there it is. So like I said, my company is called Compass Wellness. And I have two other colleagues, Terry Barrios, and she is over on Instagram. There she is on the left, my ketogenic family. And then Lindy Bolsterbaum on my right. And she is at Keto Teacher Mom over on Instagram. So
Nice.
all three of us have walked some semblance of a PhD journey together for the last 7 years. Like I said, I'm in my 30s, Lindy is in her 40s, and Terry's in her 50s. So we are in real
Nice.
time walking through this hormonal journey as we figure out how to live a proper human diet in a body that keeps changing.
Yeah.
And so I am on Instagram as well, and my handle is at Compass Coach Alyssa. And then we are also on Facebook at Compass Wellness. Like I said, we do have a Facebook group still that you're welcome to join if you are of a Facebook variety. And then, oh, there I am on Instagram. Oh, and there's my tiny human who is not tiny anymore. She just turned
Oh.
5 a
Oh
couple
my
weeks.
gosh, so cute. That's
Yeah,
adorable.
yeah. So, and then I am the lead coach in the Proper Human Diet community. And my colleagues, Terry and Lindy, and I will actually be serving as coaches in the PhD Pro level inside that PhD community that is coming in September. So we will be, yeah, so you'll get to hang out with us if you're a PhD tribe member. You'll get to see a little bit more of us coming very soon. And you are always welcome to reach out to me on social media or check out the website if you decide you're looking for a coach. I would love to have a conversation with you to see if we would be a good fit together.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Alyssa.
Thank you
This
so
has
much.
been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming and being on Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. All right, you guys, we are going to wrap it up here. I know Alyssa's got some things to do tonight, so we're not going to hold her any longer, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.